Hello and thanks for joining us for our mid-morning edition of Arirang News. I'm Mark Broom. Let's kick things off by taking a look at the day's headlines. Another step forward for diplomacy with North Korea. South Korea and the US open a working group focused on keeping their policies aligned on denuclearizing the regime and ensuring peace on the peninsula. Gridlock broken. It appears the floor leaders of South Korea's 5 political parties have agreed to normalize operations at the National Assembly. It means deliberations on next year's budget could begin soon. Plus, taking it to the streets, the Korean Confederation of Trade Unions is staging a massive general strike from today to protest planned labor reforms in the nation. Our top story this morning, Seoul and Washington's new working group on North Korea was officially launched in Washington on Tuesday, and U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo was there to make some remarks. He said the working group is to make sure the two allies share everything necessary for denuclearizing North Korea and ensuring a lasting peace on the Korean Peninsula. Our foreign affairs correspondent, Lee-ji-won, starts us off.
The newly established South Korea-U.S. Working Group on North Korean Affairs held its first meeting in Washington on Tuesday. Seoul's Foreign Affairs Ministry and the U.S. State Department both released a statement saying that the working group reaffirmed the importance of their alliance in achieving regional peace and security and further strengthened their coordination on efforts to fully denuclearize North Korea. The statements say the group, led by South Korea's Special Representative for Korean Peninsula Peace and Security Affairs Lee Do-hun and Washington's Special Representative for North Korea Stephen Biegun, also discussed achieving lasting peace on the Korean Peninsula, as well as the implementation of UN Security Council resolutions and inter-Korean cooperation. Meanwhile, in a press briefing on Tuesday, U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo said the working group will formalize the processes of denuclearization and inter-Korean efforts. Though Pompeo said there is complete agreement between Seoul and Washington on how such efforts will proceed, he specifically mentioned that the group will make sure neither side takes actions that the other is unaware of or hasn't had a chance to comment on. He reiterated that the U.S. wants to ensure denuclearization and the peace process don't lag behind the increased inter-Korean exchanges. The secretary said the two are viewed as progressing in tandem and that the working group is designed to keep it that way. Lee-ji-won, Arirang News.
Diplomacy between North Korea and the US has rather gone off the boil in recent months, it's fair to say, but the two Koreas are taking significant steps to reduce tensions between themselves, holding up its side of a military agreement signed a couple of months ago. North Korea destroyed several of its guard posts along the heavily fortified DMZ on Tuesday. Kan Hyung-woo has this report.
On Tuesday, North Korea blew up 10 guard posts on its side of the demilitarized zone. Seoul's defense ministry says it was informed in advance by North Korea through the military communication channel that it would simultaneously destroy the guard posts with explosives at 3 p.m. Last week, the South Korean army began removing 10 of its own guard posts. On both sides, the guard posts are within 1 kilometer of the military demarcation line. Their destruction was part of the comprehensive military agreement signed by the top military leaders from the two Koreas in September, and they're expected to finish tearing them down by the end of this month. Originally, the deal was for each side to take down 11 guard posts, but the two Koreas agreed to preserve 1 each for its historic and symbolic value. Once the removal of the guard posts is done on both sides, the two Koreas will carry out joint inspections of the demolition next month. South Korea currently has 60 guard posts in the DMZ, while the North has about 160. Kan Hyung-woo, Arirang News.
Now, as a follow-up to that report, defunct fences and military facilities near South Korea's coast will be taken down by the year 2021 for the benefit of local residents and tourists alike. The Defense Ministry revealed on Tuesday that over 280 kilometers of barbed wires no longer in use will be removed and replaced by cutting-edge surveillance equipment. The fences are mostly located on the shores of the West Sea and the East Sea. The ministry also decided to take down more than 8,000 military-related facilities by the year 2021 that are either too old to use or no longer needed. The floor leaders of South Korea's 5 main political parties are known to have agreed on a means to normalize the National Assembly. After a day of boycott by the 2 biggest opposition parties, the 5 floor leaders are set to meet with Speaker Moon Hee-sang soon to thrash out a final deal. With this, they are expected to confirm the composition of the subcommittee to review the government's budget proposal for 2019. They'll also resume a review of numerous bills related to the livelihoods of citizens. The ruling Democratic Party of Korea and government officials from related ministries have agreed to revise bills related to privacy to prevent abuse or misuse of personal information. During a meeting at the National Assembly on Wednesday, the 2 sides agreed to adopt a system that replaces personally identifiable information with artificial data, making data suitable for analysis without infringing on people's private lives. They also agreed to allow such data to be used in scientific research, statistics, and for other purposes that can benefit the public. South Korea's presidential office is demanding stronger anti-corruption measures as part of the administration's goal of molding a just and transparent society. Citing some recent scandals such as embezzlement at kindergartens, President Moon Jae-in urged related ministries and agencies on Tuesday to stay laser-focused on tackling this chronic issue. Cha Sang-mi reports.
Seoul's top office is pushing for drastic reform of the nation's anti-corruption measures. In meeting Tuesday with the head of Anti-Corruption and Civil Rights Commission, as well as other anti-corruption-related agencies, President Moon Jae-in said the government should take the first step.
반부패를 위한 과감한 개혁을 두려워해서는 안 됩니다. 부패에는 크고 작음이 없습니다. 작은 부패라도 피해자의 인생을 바꾸고 대한민국의 운명을 바꾸는 결과를 가져올 수 있습니다. 부패와 맞서기 위해서는 정부부터 깨끗해져야 합니다.
It was the 3rd such meeting since President took office. He was briefed about 9 types of corruption and stressed they need to be taken care of properly. Those types include unjust academic admissions and hiring, the abuse of power in the public sector, and graft and embezzlement, such as the unlawful issuance of planning permits, tax evasion, and fraud against the elderly, especially in nursing homes. The president pointed to the recent public anger over corruption at private kindergartens and over power abuse scandals, and he said that when the nation lets up its guard, corruption soon rears its head again.
문재인 정부 5년 동안 강력한 반부패 정책을 시행하고 반부패 국가 청렴한 대한민국을 유산으로 남기자는 각오가 필요합니다. 부패 없는 사회를 위해서는 끊임없는 노력이 필요합니다.
He reiterated the need for steady and effective anti-corruption policies that will ultimately lead to a society that is fair and transparent. Cha Sang-mi, Arirang News.
Now, it's only been a few days since President Moon returned from his trip to Southeast Asia for the ASEAN and APEC summits, and it was announced on Tuesday that he will be racking up some serious air miles this time from next week, as well as heading all the way to Argentina for the G20 summit. The South Korean leader will also make stops in the Czech Republic and also New Zealand before coming back to Seoul. Hwang Ho-jun reports.
President Moon has a long flight ahead of him. He's heading to South America next week for the first time since his inauguration to take part in the annual G20 summit.
From November 27 to December 4th, President Moon Jae-in will attend a Group of 20 summit hosted in Buenos Aires, Argentina. He also plans to visit the Czech Republic and New Zealand during the time as well.
Before heading to the city of fair winds, President Moon will go to the Czech Republic on Tuesday for a one-night layover. He's expected to sit down with Czech Prime Minister Andrej Babiš and give some encouragement to Korean nationals and Korean business leaders there. From there, it's on to Buenos Aires, and from November 29th to the 1st of December, he will take part in the G20 summit and many other bilateral meetings with foreign leaders on the sidelines. In fact, the Blue House has said that it's pursuing a possible meeting with U.S. President Donald Trump. Blue House spokesperson Kim Hee-kyum said that with the U.S. considering January for another summit between President Trump and North Korean leader Kim Jong-un, it's likely that President Moon will share with his U.S. counterpart his thoughts and the South Korean government's stance on the matter. While in Buenos Aires, President Moon will hold a bilateral summit with Argentinian President Mauricio Macri, the first summit of its kind in 14 years. And on the final leg of his trip, President Moon will make a 3-day state visit to New Zealand from December 2nd to the 4th, where he will attend a summit with Prime Minister Jacinda Ardern and a meeting with Governor General Patsy Reddy. Which will most likely be the South Korean president's last foreign tour this year. President Moon is expected to pursue international support during those 8 days for improving the relationship between the two Koreas by not only nailing down the second Pyongyang-Washington summit, but also North Korean leader Kim Jong-un's visit to Seoul. Hwang Ho-jun, Arirang News.
The shutdown of a controversial Comfort Women Foundation is set to be announced as early as today, a decision that's expected to worsen already strained bilateral ties between Seoul and Tokyo. The decision to shut the Reconciliation and Healing Foundation within 2 years comes amid widespread criticism over the foundation itself and the agreement reached between South Korea and Japan in late 2015 to resolve Tokyo's wartime sexual enslavement of Korean women. The foundation was established in mid-2016 with around $9 million contributed by the Japanese government. The Korean Confederation of Trade Unions will stage a general strike starting today to protest planned labour reforms here in South Korea. Labour union members say as many as 160,000 workers will take part nationwide. The strike comes as the government limited the maximum weekly working hours to 52 in order to prevent people overworking and stimulate the domestic economy in the form of increased leisure spending. The government later allowed for certain businesses to exceed the 52-hour work week for a maximum of 3 months, as long as the total average hours for the year were within the set limit. It's now considering expanding that period to 6 months. Now, as U.S. investors continue to be plagued by doubts surrounding slowing global economic growth and Washington's ongoing trade tensions with China, U.S. stocks closed sharply lower yet again on Tuesday. In fact, they wiped out all of 2018's gains thus far. Kim Hyo-sun reports.
The U.S. stock market's gains for 2018 were erased on Tuesday with continued declines on the New York Stock Exchange, due largely to a sell-off of tech firm shares. The Dow Jones Industrial Average fell 551.8 points, or 2.2%, and even tumbled as much as 650 points during the session. The S&P 500 was down 1.8%, while the tech-heavy Nasdaq was off by 1.7%. The Dow and Nasdaq fell below the 25,000 and 7,000 marks, respectively. The dip continued following signs of a global economic slowdown as well as no sign of improvement in the trade tensions between Washington and Beijing. The Federal Reserve's continued policy of rate hikes is also seen as a burden on U.S. investors. A survey by CNBC on the Global CFO Council shows more than half of the respondents think the Dow will fall 2,000 points from the current level before it rebounds. Kim Hyo-sun, Arirang News.
A new survey shows South Koreans rate their overall life satisfaction at 6.6 out of 10. Not that bad, but far from great. Experts say the score was dragged down by concerns over finding work, general health condition, and the concerns about growing old. So Bob-in with the details.
South Koreans' biggest worry is employment, and the thing they desire the most is an environment free from pollution and fine dust. According to a survey of 1,000 people over 20 years old by the Korea Institute for Health and Social Affairs, employment was Koreans' top concern. 36% of respondents mentioned employment as their biggest worry. It was followed by physical and mental health with 17%, retirement with 15%, and children's education with 7%. Most respondents in their 30s to 50s said they are preparing or will prepare for old age, while more than 70% of over 50s said they have no ability to prepare for old age. Most South Koreans said they want to live in a pollution-free environment where people don't have to worry about fine dust. The next most common desires were a safe, crime-free society and a society without the worry of hospital expenses. 서보빈, Arirang News.
Government and business leaders from across the region are in Seoul this week for a forum that's been described as Asia's version of Davos. And it's the first time it's being held outside of China. Our Jae-in has more from day one.
Held every year in China's Hainan province, the Boao Forum for Asia is committed to promoting regional economic integration and sharing visions on the most pressing issues. Known as the Asian Davos, this is the first time it's been held in another country. The theme this year is an open and innovative Asia. It was co-organized this time by the Federation of Korean Industries, a lobby group. The attendees include the South Korean Prime Minister, China's State Councilor, the South Korean Unification Minister, and business leaders from companies like SK and Hyundai Motor. Prime Minister Lee Na-kyun highlighted the importance of open markets and advanced technology.
We should open up more markets and take every opportunity to innovate technologically.
The forum's chairman, former UN Secretary General Ban Ki-moon, said in the face of global uncertainties prompted by movements against globalization, Asia could overcome them by sticking to the values of free trade and regional cooperation. Another topic was the need to work more on technology to boost efficiency in the manufacturing sector. Jae-in, Arirang News.
Now, there is a fresh sense of anticipation in the air that it might have some people have in Korea when they cast their minds back to the extremely successful 2002 World Cup. That's because the South Korean national football team put in one of its most impressive performances in many years on Tuesday night, thrashing Uzbekistan 4-0 and doing so in style. The win means head coach Paulo Bento, who's fast becoming a bit of a national icon here, remains undefeated in his first 6 games in charge. Lee Seung-jae reports.
In a dominating display in Brisbane on Tuesday, South Korea brushed aside Uzbekistan 4-0, with 4 different South Korean players getting on the score sheet. Keeping his hot streak going, striker Hwang Hee-jo found the back of the net yet again, making it 3 goals in 4 games under South Korea's new head coach Paulo Bento. Hwang is coming off a successful Asian Games in Indonesia, where he was instrumental in helping the country to the gold medal, scoring 9 goals during the tournament. The victory over Uzbekistan gives South Korea its first win on the road since head coach Paulo Bento took the reins in August, and extends Bento's impressive start to 6 games unbeaten. It's the longest undefeated start ever by a South Korean boss, surpassing the 5-game run by Joe Bonfrere in 2004. Tuesday's friendly was South Korea's final match before the 2019 AFC Asian Cup, which kicks off in the UAE in January. Despite its early success, Bento has some tough choices to make. One crunch decision is who will play in goal, with Kim Seung-gyu and World Cup hero Choi Han-woo battling it out to be between the sticks. Pundits say that with a convincing performance and a clean sheet against Uzbekistan, Choi-woo did himself some favors in Brisbane. Lee Seung-jae, Arirang News.
U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo says the United States is throwing its support behind Kim Jong-yang, who is a South Korean national, to lead the international police agency Interpol. Kim, who is currently the acting president of Interpol, was named to the interim role in October when the then president Meng Hongwei resigned after being investigated for bribery and other violations by China. The support comes as U.S. lawmakers have been lobbying the Trump administration to oppose Russian candidate Alexander Prokopchuk amid accusations Russia has been abusing Interpol. The president of Interpol will be chosen on Wednesday at an annual conference in Dubai. US President Donald Trump has signaled he will not take action against the Saudi government over the recent killing of a Saudi journalist. For more on this story and other news from around the world, let's turn to our Noah Aram. So Aram, there have been calls from both home and abroad for the US to punish the kingdom for this gruesome murder, but Trump really seems to be sticking to his guns.
That's right, Mark. Trump is defending US ties to Saudi Arabia despite acknowledging that Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman may actually have known about the plan to murder Jamal Khashoggi. In a statement on Tuesday, the US president said the kingdom is a steadfast partner that has agreed to invest a record amount of money in the United States. He also described Saudi Arabia as a spectacular ally that has helped in America's fight against Iran. Trump has resisted calls from US lawmakers to impose sanctions on Riyadh, such as cancelling military contracts with the kingdom. Speaking to the press later in the day, Trump said such a move would only benefit Russia and China. He also cited Riyadh's influence over oil prices for wanting to maintain economic ties. The CIA has concluded that Prince Salman may have ordered Khashoggi's killing, but President Trump has been reluctant to endorse that assessment. The Trump administration has, however, imposed sanctions on 17 Saudis accused of participating in the killing, but lawmakers want tougher measures that target the Saudi government. A suicide bomber in the Afghan capital of Kabul has killed more than 40 people and injured dozens more after targeting a crowd of religious scholars. Other reports have suggested the death toll was more than 50. The scholars had met inside a wedding hall near the city's airport to celebrate Prophet Muhammad's birthday. No one immediately claimed responsibility for the attack, but the Taliban and Islamic State affiliates have carried out similar attacks before. Muhammad's birthday is celebrated by Muslims around the world, but extremist groups believe marking it is sacrilegious. Officials in Indonesia say a dead sperm whale that washed ashore in the east of the country had nearly 6 kilograms of plastic waste in its stomach. Rescuers from Wakatobi National Park found the rotting carcass of the 9.5-metre whale on Monday near Kapota Island. Park officials said the waste included more than 1,000 pieces of plastic, including cups, bags and bottles, as well as a couple of flip-flops. Marine conservation officials said it was not possible to determine if the plastic had actually caused the whale's death because of the animal's advanced state of decay. According to the journal Science, Indonesia is the world's second largest plastic polluter after China. Nearly half of the 3 million tons of mismanaged plastic waste produced in that country each year ends up in the ocean.
Good morning. There will be 5 to 15 millimeters of showers in many regions, while some inland regions, including here in the capital, could see the first snow of this season today. But those mix of snow and rain in the evening hours could cause some problems during the evening commute. A cold air mass will move in this afternoon and will bring down the temperatures. It could feel colder than this morning due to strong gusts, and it's going to feel more like the end of December for the next 2 mornings. Daily highs for the day will not rise much for most parts, ranging from 8 to 17 degrees Celsius. Seoul will only get up to 8 degrees Celsius this afternoon. Another band of rain and snow is in the forecast for Saturday in the central regions, and it seems like we'll have to wait until early next week to see temperatures rising back to seasonal averages. So until then, stay bundled up. That's Korea for you, and here's international weather for viewers around the world.
Well, that's where we're going to have to leave it for now. Do stay tuned to us here on Arirang TV. Our next newscast, though, that's coming up at noon Korea time with our Lee Ji-yoon. So until then, goodbye.